Hello and welcome back to Watch and Waffle. My name is Thomas Thorogood and as always I am joined by
Joe Levy.
And we are going to go through each of us our top 5 film directors. So this was very challenging to put together, wasn't it? Joe.
Thomas.
What is your number 5?
My number 5 is 100% one of the... He's like... known as one of the greats, and when you look at his films, they are incredible. I've gone for Mr. David Fincher.
Very good.
Yeah. I think he's fantastic, and my favourite film of his, it was difficult because I didn't know whether or not to put Seven, which is remarkable, or Fight Club. But I did go for Fight Club because it's the first one, I think, of his films that I did see. I'm
laughing because my number 5 is David Fincher as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Overlap already.
Wait. This is going to be...
But yeah, sorry. Yeah. Fight Club.
It's just a fantastic film. I think the best twist in history, really. Amazing acting. I've actually got the soap.
I didn't realise they did a TV soap opera version.
Well, they...
Oh, sorry. Oh, what? You mean the bar of soap?
Wow.
The cake of soap.
The cake of soap. And it's quite cool. It's like wrapped in the same... It's like wrapped in paper which has got the rules on them. And then it's got the title logo ingrained on it. Is
yours made with fat from a liposuction ward?
I don't know.
I hope not.
It does smell brilliant though.
Great, yeah.
So you're number 5.
Good choice. So I went for David Fincher as well. I had to include him in this list because he did direct my favourite film of all time.
Oh,
which is The Social Network.
I completely overlooked that one whenever I look.
And it's not often listed as like the best David Fincher film. I know I'm a bit weird that that's my favourite film of all time. And if we can do another episode where I justify that choice. But he's known for the very kind of quite gritty, desaturated look. He likes to keep the camera very steady. He uses as little movement as possible. And when he does use movement, it's very smooth movement. There's only one shot in The Social Network that's handheld, and you really notice it when you know that. So yeah, his films have a style to them. Some people find them a bit cold, and they can be. And
they're quite consistently similar, aren't they? Because if you look at, I think the top 4, we would put Fight Club, 7... Gone Girl and Social Network.
And if you look in the top 4,
and they're all completely different films, but if you do look at what he would have his hands over, all of those elements seem to be very similar throughout his film.
You're like, this is a David Fincher film.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
My number 4. We will disagree about this, Thomas, because we did have this discussion, and I think we are going to have this discussion at some point. But my number 4 is Quentin Tarantino.
Cutie.
I absolutely think he is my favourite filmmaker of all time. He's strongest when he's made the script and he's making the film. That's what he's known as, a director-writer. He's not just a director. But I thought he belongs on this list because his directing is so iconic. My favourite film has got to be Pulp Fiction. It's so iconic. It's so well directed as well. Like there are shots which are so awkward, but are just moments where the characters are just talking and you can just relax and the camera is very smooth and stops and it's not quick, like cut to cut. And then there are really intense scenes, and I think the way he directs that film really shows his capability to make you feel so relaxed and comfortable, and those moments when you're really shocked that someone's head has just been like blown off or whatever. But yeah, he's my number 4.
Great, Tarantino. As you say, we might have a conversation about that later on because we agree on quite a lot of things.
We do.
If I'm honest, I do not get Tarantino at all. I've tried to. I respect your opinion. I can see that there's a lot of skill in there. I'm just not a fan of his films. I'm sorry. Incidentally, my number 4 is a director who actually walked out of a Tarantino film.
Ooh.
Wes Craven.
Wes Craven.
Do you know
I
Wes Craven?
don't think I've watched Wes Craven.
So he's often considered the best horror director of all time. And he walked out of a screening of Reservoir Dogs because he found that the film was indulging in the violence too much.
Unbelievable. Horror directors.
Well, this is what's fascinating about it. Something about Tarantino's way of working with violence grated on him. And I'm not saying that that's the way everyone needs to feel about Tarantino films, but I just think that's interesting to note, that it's not so much what you depict, it's how you depict it.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about Wes Craven is when he depicts violence on screen, he wants the viewer to feel the weight of that.
Yeah.
And so I think Scream would be my favourite of his, because it's very meta, but the kills in themselves are actually very serious, and so when the film needs to be serious, it is. What's your number 3?
My number 3. So I haven't seen a lot of this man's films. If they're making it on this list, you should have watched a lot of their films. But I've seen 4, and one of them was Apocalypse Now. And the other 3 were the Godfather trilogy, Francis Ford Coppola. I think Godfather 1 is the greatest. It's not my favourite film. It's weird that I don't think it's my favourite, but I think it is the greatest film made. At the script, the music, the acting, the directing, everything, even the costumes. It's got everything in it. And I think to make the greatest film ever made, in my opinion, you've got to be one of the greatest directors ever. It's becoming an opinion now of people going, well, it's really too highly rated, and I think it's bad because it's too highly rated. I think they're just to be honest, I think they're just trying to be different. I think you've just got to accept that it's a really good film. Like, everyone should think it. I think
despising The Godfather isn't a substitute for a personality. Yeah, it's a bit like Citizen Kane is often considered the greatest film of all time.
Well,
and I don't think it is.
I don't.
But I can watch it and appreciate. I don't want to say, oh, it's a bad film, because it's a phenomenally well-made film.
Yeah.
It deserves, in many ways, the credit.
But if you're going to
if you go into a film thinking, I've been told by so many people this is the best film ever made, you're probably going to be disappointed. Yeah. But anyway, my number 3 is Danny Boyle. Danny Boyle, as Mark Kermode would say.
I've definitely seen films.
Oh, so Danny Boyle, a phenomenal filmography. British director.
Right.
So Trainspotting.
Oh, I love Danny Boyle.
Millions. 28 Days Later. Slumdog Millionaire. 127 Hours. But the film I've gone for is a film called Sunshine, which is a lesser-known Danny Boyle film, partly because it came out on the hottest day of the year, so no one went to the cinema, which is ironic. But it's such a great film. It's Cillian Murphy is the star. Yeah. And it has Chris Evans in it and others. And the plot is the sun is going out, and so a team of people from Earth are flying towards the sun in a ship with an atomic bomb the size of Manhattan, and they're going to drop it on the sun to reignite it. And when you put it like that, it sounds really stupid. But it's so well done. It's quite theological, and it's emotional, and the music is phenomenal.
So let me get this straight. They're going to blow up the sun.
Well, to reignite its kind of fusion reaction.
Right. So my top 2 are very stereotypical, because when you get to the stage, if you're thinking about the greatest, I think most people will end up to the same 2. But for number 2, I went for the little man himself, Martin Scorsese. Recently, I watched The Goodfellas, and I was just absolutely blown away. I mean, it's 3. He loves making a long film. Dear me. The Irishman was almost 4 hours long. But it's long, but it's incredible. I was really blown away by just how it manages to keep you involved in the entire film. He doesn't mind being slow. He enjoys a lovely bit of dialogue. Even actors say he'll get them to do something, and then he'll say, so what do you want to do? And he'll let them roam. For a director to do that, to not think, I've got to have control over every moment, is quite a talent to have, and I think he's incredible.
My number 2 is Steven Spielberg.
Oh, 1 or 2 you went to.
Yeah, it was very torn.
It's a really difficult decision.
But I adore Steven Spielberg. There are so many things we could identify about why Steven Spielberg is so brilliant, but the one thing I want to pick out is his versatility. Jurassic Park is a completely different film to Schindler's List, which is a completely different film to Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Munich, or Bridge of Spies, or the BFG, or The Terminal. Just so many. I think what I would pick out as my favourite is Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Really? I've never seen that one.
Have you not?
To pick it as a Spielberg best.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind is just a really beautiful, believable story about UFOs coming, and this guy kind of finding himself drawn into it at the loss of at becoming increasingly alienated, pardon the pun, from his family.
Yeah.
And it's tragic, it's heartbreaking, but it's beautifully done. Beautiful score by John Williams, who of course did most of his films.
Like Jaws. We forgot to mention Jaws.
Jaws, yes. Jaws. Jaw-dropping.
Jaw-dropping.
What about you? What's your
my number one is the man himself, Steven Spielberg. He has made so many, like when you do look at his films, he has made like a shocking amount of films. And the amount of classics in there, like Jaws, like Saving Private Ryan, like E.T., whatever film he's making, he makes it into the best film it possibly can be. And I think I was truly impressed. I put Schindler's List as his number one. Just for the way it's just so beautifully made. Like
the use of black and white.
And the little red coat as well. To make that decision to go, she's going to be the only little piece of light in this entire horrifying time. Yeah. And then you see the red coat later on. It's really striking. In Saving Private Ryan, that first scene where they're on the beach is like soldiers apparently had flashbacks because it was so accurate. Because he's just got that element of putting the audience right there where the main character is and taking you on this journey. And I think for that, he is my number one. I think your number one, I think it's going to be Stanley Kubrick.
No, my number one is Alfred Hitchcock.
Ah, fair play.
Probably a classic choice to go for, but I do think it's justified in that I've seen quite a few of his films. I've seen The Birds, I've seen Psycho, I've seen Rear Window, I've seen North by Northwest, Vertigo.
Yeah.
Rope. Rear Window would be my favourite. One of the most vivid memories I have of like the impact of cinema as a thing was I played that film to some friends at a sort of little party we did at someone's house. And they all found it a little bit boring to begin with, because films in those days, they start slower and they have more of a build-up. So people were kind of chatting and didn't really get into it. But then there is a moment in the film where Grace Kelly is in the building opposite. The murderer notices that she's gesturing across to the person on the other side of the street, and you see him turn and look right into the camera, and all of us watching it were like and there was just this collective and I just thought, what a genius. He made that in the 50s and it's still having that impact. So I think he is the master of suspense. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. We are on all the platforms. You can watch us on YouTube and Spotify, or listen wherever you get your podcasts. But Joe, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure.
And we will be back to do a debate. Is Quentin Tarantino overrated? I will be arguing for the affirmative. You will be arguing for no.
I think we everyone who's watching will share the same opinion. I think
there's a silent large number of people out there who are just terrified to say anything contrary to everything they hear. Tarantino's amazing. They deep down they're thinking, is he though? Should we have a waffle?
Let's have a